Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Divas Network. My name is Candace Gish and I am the host of this program. Well, thank you so much for all of our new listeners today. We're going to have an amazing show. If you just tuned in, our show has been running now for 9 years. What we do is that we have a group of women. We have 10 hosts now that interview women from around the world. We're interviewing these women that are wanting to make the world a better place. And our hashtag out there is Divas That Care. So if you see that, you'll know it's part of our program. Well, let's get started. Today's guest is a brand new Diva Tour program. Her name is Ruthann Weeks, and I'm excited to hear more about her story and her journey that she's on. It's quite interesting, the things that I've been able to research a little bit about this woman. She is absolutely inspirational, and she's going to empower each and every one of you today. So welcome to the show, Ruthann. I'm very excited to get to you.
Thank you so much, Candace. I'm so excited to be here. It's my first podcast, so I'm kind of breaking my my bubble that way. And I'm really looking forward to sharing my story.
Well, I'm excited. Would you mind spending a few minutes, telling us a little bit about yourself?
I am a human resource professional with a certification in information referral specialty and a psychological health and safety advisor. So that's my credentials. That's the formal learning behind what I do. I describe myself as a bit of a late bloomer. I was 30 when I met my husband, 34 when I got married, 37 when I had my son, 39 when I started my post-secondary. I've had a long and varied career. I've always found myself in roles where people were sharing their stories with me, and I was connecting people with resources and things that they needed. And my story has my career path has led me to start my own business, which I always wanted to do. And I can tell you a little more about that. It is related to the specialty work that I do in creating healthy and inclusive corporate culture by addressing the issues of violence and harassment and bullying and domestic violence in the workplace and that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. And that's something that we're hearing a lot more of these days is we're hearing a lot. I think maybe, I don't even know what it would be. It's not really the social media. It's just that people are more aware of their surroundings and what's going on. And what you're doing now is quite crucial to today's society and what we're needing so I want to address that and talk a little bit more about that.
We are absolutely in a social shift right now globally. And part of it is because we're in a global economy. Employers need to be more competitive. They have to think about things like their workplace culture and psychological health and safety in the workplace. And just to tell you a little bit more about that, psychological safety is about being able to bring up an idea around the boardroom table, to make mistakes, to learn, to be innovative, to be healthy, to be in an organization that is civil and respectful, to have clear leadership, psychological support, healthy culture, involvement, workload management. It's a system. And employers that are ignoring this kind of stuff, as the walls come down and the stigma is removed and the global economy takes over, they're going to be left behind because top talent will not want to work for them or with them.
And that's really smart, right? We need that. We need to keep on evolving as our businesses grow. We need to be better. But what at the same time is that you're getting rid of a lot of that tension, I think, that's building in some of the businesses. Do you find, and this is something that's been brought up in our show a few times, the difference between having a man and a woman in a workplace, and sometimes the tensions are there on competitiveness and things like that. Do you see a lot of that? Is that the kind of things that you're working on to help get rid of?
Well, I guess the thing that comes to mind when you talk about genders is the sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is rampant, even if it's, something like mansplaining around the boardroom table where, the man probably doesn't even realize he's doing it. I try to keep gender out of it because these rules apply to everybody. And the top three fields at least in Canada, for workplace bullying are healthcare, teaching, and social work. They're all female-dominated professions, and
Yep.
they're all helping professions. So it's very sad to me. And
Mhm.
I think, that being said, women, there's a saying that nurses eat their young. I mean, it's ingrained in those cultures. So in order to change culture within an organization, you have to start at the top. You can have things written on a wall. You can have the beautiful vision statement and the wonderful mission statement on your website. But unless
Mhm.
it's implemented top down, then you'll never be created change.
I love that. And that's one of the reasons that we started the Divas That Care. Uh, it was one of the crucial things is that having women support one another and lock arms and create that positive change, be those mentors, be those positive people in their lives, and I love that because you're still seeing that even though we think that we're going to help each other and lift each other up, there's still that competitive, and there's still, unfortunately, like you're saying, in a lot of ways, there's still that a little bit of that bullying going on, and make toughing them up. Is that would that be the right terminology? Because we're finding that it's still out there.
Well, it's not like schoolyard bullying. Schoolyard bullying, it tends to be the weak that get targeted and those that won't stand up for themselves. In the workplace, it is the strong. It is the person that comes in with new ideas, who's on fire for their job, who might turn out or start out to be a really passionate employee, who just won't integrate with the status quo. So then they get targeted. Sometimes it's through mobbing, when a group will target a particular individual. They'll exclude them. I know in my own workplace bullying scenario, it was all very covert. I was new. I came into a place that hadn't seen turnover in decades. A couple of employees had retired. They combined a position. I came in as a director. I asked for an organizational chart my very first day on the job because it's important to me, and I'm an information person. I wanted to know where I was, where I fit. So I had my team that reported to me as a director. I was across the board. There was 3 of us, and we all reported directly to the ED. Well, I found out my first day on the job that the ED was leaving in 3 months, and although there was absolutely zero communication, I rarely saw her after that. One of the other directors, who was in her 70s and had been in the position for decades, stepped into the acting ED role. None of this was communicated, and she was not involved in hiring me. She didn't like me. She didn't get to know me. She didn't trust me. You have to have trust. Trust is
Yes.
the foundation of a healthy workplace. And, needless to say, within 3 months, behind closed doors, all covertly, with no chance to defend myself or tell my story, I was let go. I was bullied out of that job within 3 months.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
So, yeah, and I'd like to say that I did found my business. That was in October, and I founded my business in January. And I'd like to say that I just hit the ground running and everything's been great with my business. But I was really wounded. I am a high achiever. I left a job that I loved, that I'd kind of just run out of room to grow in, but with great people to take this position. So I was quite devastated. I spent a year watching Netflix and eating bad food and taking lots of bubble baths and, just
Oh,
licking my wounds because I had to kind of reinvent myself. But it's been fabulous because it's
yes.
really led me to launching my business and stepping out into this field that I'm very passionate about.
Well, now you're able to help people in a different way too. And I just want to address too. It's interesting because I'm listening to this story, and I hear a lot of boards, like volunteer boards are like that also. And it's just always amazed me when somebody, like you're saying, has all these ideas, really wants to be a go-getter and help things out, and the people that have been there, they just don't want to allow these people to be a part of it. They're scared of change. And do you think that's a lot of it? Like, people just are resistant to the change of what needs to be done in order to grow?
Absolutely. Remember, it's the high achievers that get targeted, the ones that come in and rock the boat. They shake up the status quo. And
Yep.
people do get stuck in complacency. Now, I'm not saying this happens everywhere. Smart business understands that, they need to embrace innovation and new ideas, or else they do get
Yes.
stagnant and they don't grow, and eventually they get left behind. But absolutely, you find it in municipalities, small towns. The same five families run everything. It's really hard to create change. And a lot of people just get disheartened and give up. But it was an eye-opener for me, because I'm a heart-centered people person. So when I go into nonprofits, no one works in the nonprofit sector to get rich. So,
No, they don't.
so I expect to find other heart-centered people within those organizations, and that's not always the case, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. No, I understand. I've been in those situations myself in the past. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love that you are getting out there and you are supporting. So how do people find you? How is this how is it that you can make an impact with a lot of these businesses? I know for some of our listeners that to let them know that you are in Alberta, you're in the Edmonton area, but do you work strictly with these people, or do you work outside the region also?
I will travel. Yes, I'll travel primarily in Western Canada right now, but I am looking to grow the speaking part of my business. So I'm just excited to see where that will take me. I know that Australia has been a leader in this type of thing as far as recognizing mental health in the workplace and domestic violence and how it affects the workplace. And domestic violence is an area of workplace dynamics that I believe are vastly misunderstood. The whole issue related to domestic violence, I believe, is misunderstood. But just to answer your question, I have devised a system whereby we go into an organization, we evaluate their current culture, we assess, address, and accelerate. So we can evaluate their current culture, we address the issues that we find, and business improves, because organizational, physical, mental, and emotional health leads to maximized profits and productivity. It just happens that way. So I offer training programs. I'm working on getting my stuff online. So yeah, right now it's predominantly in Western Canada, but I'm just excited to see where it's going to take me. So I'm not sure. We'll share my website and phone number and all that, I assume, later
Yes.
on.
Well, we're going to be definitely doing that, because I think this is a great thing that you're doing. I love this idea, because I really believe that this is, for any type of business, sometimes people aren't aware of what's going on. If you're at the head of a business, you don't realize what's happening throughout it, especially if your business is very big. If you have a smaller business, sometimes you can see things a little bit clearer. So I think that somebody like yourself going into any type of business, any type of volunteer organization too, it's nice to have that, because if you're able to get everybody and teach them maybe some skills in order to not do the things they were doing in the past and teach them how to move forward, I think that's a great thing. It just helps everybody else out.
Yeah, and it's funny, because I'll have people say to me all the time, well, sexual harassment, it's a gray area. And I always say it's not. It really is black and white.
Yeah.
I always include expected and prohibited conduct. I've been in networkers where when people find out what I do, I've had men say to me, oh, well, a two-handed handshake and a pat on the back, they're going to be screaming sexual harassment. I'm like, that's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But at the same time, harassment, especially if it comes from a culture of misogyny and just a culture where women don't have roles outside of a clerk or a secretarial role or that kind of thing. Yep. It can be an ingrained part of the culture, and that's why I always say it has to be top down, because middle management won't work, and sometimes it's middle management that stands in the way, because they recognize there's a problem, but they don't want to get blamed for having the problem within their departments. So if it's not at the very top, it's very difficult to create change.
Amazing. Isn't that amazing? I know, and I like hearing stories like this, and I like the conversation that's bringing up because a lot of people are probably thinking right now, wow, it's not something that you really talk about unless you're in that situation. But it's more of it's a bigger thing than people realize.
I am in, whenever I'm in a group of people and people find out the kind of work that I do, inevitably there's always at least one person, sometimes more, that come to me and they share with me their own stories of how they've suffered in the workplace. They tell me about how small and insignificant they felt, how they feel disposable. They talk about their physical and their mental health being affected, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the mere thought of going to work gives them heart palpitations. I was at a bullying talk one time, and there was a guy. He was a municipal mayor, really high functioning, great guy, really terrific guy, and he just made it part of his everyday practice to take his blood pressure every day. So he's been doing this for a number of years. During that period of bullying with his work, his blood pressure went through the roof. This stuff, it doesn't just affect your mental health, it affects your physical health. I know when I was in my situation, I have ulcerative colitis. I was in colitis flare. I was really sick, and not just heart sick, but physically sick as well. And that's where the lost productivity comes up because people are missing time. They're going to more health appointments. They're disengaged. They're disheartened, and they're just not bringing their best to work.
No, and it's not just work that it affects. Now it's affecting the rest of their lives, as you were saying, and their family lives. And if they're not happy, their children see it. It's like, well, what's going on?
Absolutely.
And it's a vicious cycle. Then people start thinking, well, that's normal and that's acceptable, and it's not acceptable. And we want to teach our next generation, and our show is about a lot of that. Is really mentoring them and teaching them that it's not okay, and that we want to empower them to be the best people they can be because they're the ones that are going to change the world too. So we need to do that. And with what you're doing, you're going to help them with the work. And I just love that. And I applaud you for all that you're doing because I think it's very foundational to do something like this.
Thanks, Candace. And that brings up another good point, actually. The Gen Zers that are entering the workforce now, they're the ones graduating from post-secondary right now, and it kind of started with the millennials. They're breaking down those stigmas. They're breaking down those walls. It's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to share. It's okay to, blow the whistle if you need to. But the old standard of if you don't like it, just leave is not going to fly. And unless organizations embrace that, they're not going to be able to hold on to the younger generations and have that innovation and growth within their organizations.
That is so true. And we've been very fortunate to be able to chat with a lot of young, I would call them our young divas on the show now, and how they're doing extraordinary things out there, and they're standing up for everything that they believe in. So I I see that, and I applaud them because that's exactly what the world needs is more of those young individuals. And now I want to kind of go into something else that you and I had briefly chatted about before we started the program here. You talked about something that is passionate to you and something that is probably going to be a little shocking to some of the people that listen to the show today. So would you share about that today?
Yeah, I'd love to. First of all, I when I started Harmony Training and Development, I started it as a social enterprise because it exists to educate on violence and harassment. And it's a rampant issue, not just in our workplaces, but in our lives. But I've also built corporate social responsibility into my business model. So a portion of every dollar that I make in my business, not profits, but every dollar of earnings goes towards domestic violence prevention initiatives. And the reason I did that, I worked for 7 years in human service roles. And when I first started in that, I didn't really have much of an education on domestic violence, and I didn't really understand what it was, but I knew it was prevalent, so I got busy at learning about it. And it really quickly became an area of passion for me because I just, first of all, I didn't even realize until I'd gotten some education that my 20s relationship was a domestic violence situation. Not necessarily overly physical, but absolutely psychological and the isolating piece and all of that. So just to give it some teeth, in 2017 in Alberta alone, almost 10,000 women and children went through the shelter system. And despite the work of many good people in the province, more than 22,000 people were turned away from the shelter system. Now, these are the women and children that actually wanted to get out. They were looking for safety. And the fact that they couldn't find safety, it breaks my heart. 22,000 people is more than the capacity at a regular hockey arena or a baseball stadium. So just to give you a visual, that breaks my heart. So I'm doing my part, what I can. I'm putting money aside, and I have a separate CSR account. And when we get some significant funds in there and I get partnered with the right people, I really want to, I'm going to create safe spaces for those that are looking to flee domestic violence.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And I love your heart in that, because it's heartbreaking, like you're saying. We talk about it a lot. We don't realize the impact, but it's individuals that really make a difference, and what you're doing is really supporting that, endeavor and the things that you're wanting to do in the future. And I'm excited because I can't wait to hear more about what you're going to be doing with that. And we'll definitely have you on the show talking about that if you'd be interested in it on a later date. Ruthann, this is absolutely fantastic. I am just blown away by the things that you're doing. I want to talk more about perhaps your speaking engagements. You said you'd like to do more of the speaking engagements. So this might be something that we can tell us more about that part of it so that we can get you booked into different locations.
Well, I'm interested in growing my speaking. I'm actually in a process of kind of rebranding. Because my target market is corporate. When I first started my business, I sort of set everything up very corporately. I used a lot of we language, and I've realized that I need to step out as the face of my business. It's my story. I am what sets my business apart from my competitors. So I am embracing that. I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone to do that, but that's where growth happens, and I'm excited about that, and I've known I've had to do that for a while, and it's coming together. So, public speaking is something that I'm really interested in. I can go and talk about, I can talk about the sexual harassment. I can talk about the domestic violence and how it affects life and work. I can talk about mental health and psychological health and safety, but I can also talk about my own story, my story of overcoming and stepping out as a late bloomer and, stepping into my destiny. I'm 53 years old, and I just feel like life is just getting started for me. And I'm on fire, and I want to share that. If there are people that need the message that I've got, I want to deliver it.
Well, and we want to share it with you because we're excited. And I love that you're wanting to share your story. And the Divas That Care is all about providing a platform for women like yourself to share as much as you can with all of our listeners and all of our tribe around the world. So thank you so much for doing that with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a great talk. I was a little bit nervous, but I'm a talker, so you led me down the path without much pain.
Well, I think you did absolutely fantastic, amazing, and we loved having you. And I want to welcome you to our Diva family.
Thank you, Candace. It means a lot. I love connecting with heart-centered people who are passionate about the work that they do and are really interested in creating change.
Oh, wonderful. And I just want to thank all of our amazing listeners out there. I'm going to be posting all of Ruthann's social media links on our social media links so that you can get a hold of them. You can connect with her. You can pass this particular show on to all of your friends and family, people that you think is going to be really impacted, people that you think that are going to need it. Send it to your bosses because this is something that I think everybody needs to have in their workplace. So I'm going to make sure that you guys have it all. I'm going to be also, for any of you that are just tuning in for today for the very first time, check out our other amazing divas out there. If you can visit all of our shows at divasthatcare.com. We have all of our shows. As I said, we've been doing this for 9 years. There's absolutely amazing women out there that are sharing their stories, and they want to inspire and empower all of you. So I'm excited to be able to share with you all their stories, and I'm really very excited that you tuned in for Ruthann show today. So again, thank you to Ruthann. Thank you to all of our amazing listeners. I really love having these brand new guests that come on our show. So I want to support them in any way that I can. I hope that all of you have a fantastic day and that you make sure that you do something kind for somebody. Until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.